Everybody knew this video was coming. I've been waiting to make this video for a very, very long time, and I've made a few very similar ones on the channel that have done quite well. Everyone seemed to give me a good reception, and I'm going to say right now, a lot of the reasons that I would be a fan of Jon Jones would be just the fact that he wins his fights. No matter what you can say about him, the man is supremely talented. He wins every single one of his matches. You know, he's got one loss on his record, which was a disqualification. I don't think it should have been, you know, so he is undefeated in the sport. He, at the beginning of his career, when he was fighting lesser competition, the sport's evolved now. You know, he's not really evolved with the sport. You know, he's very dangerous. He's never dropped anybody with his hands. You know, the only time he's ever dropped anybody, I believe, is with an elbow or a head kick. I'm not disputing how talented he is. I'm just here to say to all the Jon Jones fans that have been in my comments for years, since I started this channel, slating me for all the things I've said about this man, and continuously, this man that you're constantly trying to defend fucks up again and again. You know, let's talk about it. This video is pretty much me saying the whole man's career is fraudulent. The legacy is not as good as you think it is. It looks fantastic on paper. It's a sea of green on Sherdog and Tapology on the UFC Fight Pass page, but when you look at it at a deeper level, especially becoming the light heavyweight champion at 23 years of age, which is a phenomenal achievement. Very few will ever do that again, but if anyone will do that again, I want to say this. The majority of his light heavyweight wins were from middleweights coming up and fighting him on short notice. And you can go back and look in the history books. He's never fought somebody equal to his size the majority of the time. You know? Someone who doesn't have the physical attributes that he did. And, you know, we've had people like Chael Sonnen, who was on steroids when he fought Jon Jones, say, yeah, you know, you can even feel it in there. The guy is on steroids. You know, everyone Chael Sonnen was fighting in the gym while he was a middleweight, while he was on steroids. He was bigger than, he was stronger than. Even the heavyweights, he was juiced out of his gills. And Jones had the power and the strength over Chael Sonnen. And Chael Sonnen said, yeah, the man's on steroids. We all know this, you know, and he's failed 4 drug tests within the UFC. We've seen pictures of him hiding underneath rings in gyms when USADA are here to take drug tests. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to break it all down, you know. Let's talk about it. First things first, the majority of his light heavyweight wins and title defences are against men significantly smaller than him with no physical attributes to even compare to Jones. Now, obviously, that's not discrediting the skill you need to beat these men. You know, Jones had a very tough fights, and, you know, he got the wins, and this is back when he was a young, hungry up-and-comer, and this is when he was not Jon Bones Jones. This was before we kind of all known him as this dominant champion, and he proved us all wrong. He proved us all right. He did phenomenally well. However, my one nitpick is I'd like to see him fight somebody, you know, his size, not these middleweights that are just taking these fights on 5-6 week notice. Against him, you know, people like Chael Sonnen as one example. You then get to, you know, when he is the champion originally, back in the day, a man named Alexander Gustafsson steps in to fight Jones. Now, I thought this could be a really good fight, you know, the same size. There's a fly flying about me, just fuck off. Gustafsson gives a phenomenal war against Jones, and I arguably would say Jones lost that fight. He was given a very arguable split decision victory in the toughest fight of his career up to that point against somebody who is the same height, the same weight as him. Okay, now we're going to get some interesting fights. He takes some time off, blah, 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 etc. Daniel Cormier fights happen. He fights Daniel Cormier, he wins, he then pops for steroids. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you know, he didn't pop for steroids, you know, it was a very low amount, etc. His testosterone in that fight was that of a chemically castrated male, which means he did not have any testosterone in his body being tested for that fight. So, you tell me, as a professional athlete, one of the most healthiest human beings on the planet at that point, one of the most dangerous and powerful men with speed and snap and technique, can you have no testosterone in your body, that of a female? That's because there was another substance in his system replacing his testosterone. I can't actually remember the name of it at the moment. However, it's known to be a mask for other... It's to flush other drugs out of your system, you know, which it replaces your testosterone, essentially removing anything from your system. Therefore, he was castrated. He had the testosterone levels in him of like a 2-year-old boy, yet he went out there and fought one of the most dangerous and well-rounded men on the planet in Daniel Cormier. Again, a guy who, Daniel Cormier is 5'9" and is a very fat man, and he's done a lot in the sport. However, at that point in time, he was 37 years old. We're going to talk about this age thing a bit later, because Jones now at 37 wants to fight somebody his own age. However, Jones was 26, I believe, when he fought Daniel Cormier, the 37-year-old. That's one thing. He fails that. He wins the rematch. There's a lot of questions around that. He then disappears. Now, I want to make this very clear. At this point, USADA was the drug testing agency that was in partnership with the UFC, and they do not have to disclose if a fighter fails a drug test. And you're probably wondering, why is Jon Jones, one of the greatest fighters ever, in his prime, taking 2 years out? It's a very weird... Yeah, why would he do that? Nobody knows. He got into a lot of trouble. He was almost put in prison. The hit and run incident. He hit a pregnant... This is your GOAT, by the way, guys. This is your favourite fighter. Great role model. He hits a lady with his car and flees the scene. But then, the CCTV footage has him running back to the scene shortly later. Thank God, he's hammered. He's hit a pregnant woman. She could be dead along with her child. But he comes to his senses. He runs back thinking, he's going to phone an ambulance. He's going to lift this lady up, take this lady home. No. No, he opens the back of his car and takes away the cocaine and the drugs and runs off again. And he didn't go to prison for that. Fair enough. Being an athlete, being rich, having money doesn't send you to prison. I also would like to point out, he's never publicly apologised for this. He just kind of ignores it. And I also want to point out, his brother, Jon Jones's brother, a freak of nature athletically as well, is in the NFL, or was in the NFL. I'm unaware if he still plays. I'm not an American football fan. So his brother, another peak athlete at the top of his sport, was popped for performance-enhancing drugs as well. In the same year. It's a coincidence. It's just a coincidence, So you're telling me, if I'm Jon Jones, and I'm not cheating, my brother also is popped for the same thing, and he's not cheating either, and we're both at the top level of athletic ability, the top level of sport in the United States. At that point, the UFC was one of the biggest things, and it's also, football is probably the biggest sport in the States, along with basketball, So it's funny that, isn't it? They both pop for the same drug. Yeah, that's really cool. Well done, John. That's not suspicious at all. You, two brothers, two dirty cheats. Oh, you're dirty. You could go as dirty cheats for Halloween. You're both testing positive for the old steroids. One of them's football, which is illegal. The one in the UFC, maybe you get a wee suspension. You get in trouble. You could kill a man. If you killed Daniel Cormier in that first fight and you were on drugs, you'd be going to prison. So, yeah, lucky you, mate. So, yeah, well, that was that year. Then what happened next? Yeah, Jones all of a sudden takes a lot of time off. Undisclosed reasons. Obviously, hits the lady with the car. Nothing much. His fans still absolutely adore him, even though he's a cunt. What happens next? Let me think about it. And I'm not trying to be condescending here. I think Jon Jones is a fucking great guy. Oh, yeah, he battered his wife. Yeah, he did that. He got called by his children, phoned the police. Oh, in that same year, he must have been going through a tough time. His children phoned the police and he got charged with domestic battery, but that's all right. Not a big deal at all. Doesn't really mean anything, does it? Who cares? His fans ignore that as well. The UFC ignore it. He's never publicly apologised for beating the fuck out of his beloved wife. That's okay, no problem. We all do it. If I was married, I would do it. Overcook the dinner. Bah! You know what I mean? Yeah, so, moving on. What else happened that year? Oh, a fight gets announced. I think it was 2018, the year 2018, maybe 2019. I don't know. I can't remember if it was before Conor Khabib or after. He's back. Jones is back. He's fighting Alexander Gustafsson, the return of the champion, So he's fighting Alexander Gustafsson. That gets announced. I believe it was towards the end of the year, or it was the beginning of the year. I think it was maybe like March, January, February, something like that. I should have shared dog up, but I don't. I'm stumbling over my words. I just get very into this, So, he's fighting Gustafsson. good fight. You know, Gustafsson the first time gave him a run for his money. Since then, Alexander lost to DC badly. You know, he lost to all the top level competition. So a lot of people were thinking, why is Gustafsson getting a title shot? Well, you know, the UFC love to pander to Jon Jones, you know, just pad his records to fuck. Jones beats him. Jones actually beats him comfortably. He looked a bit dodgy on the feet, but Gustafsson didn't look like his usual self. And since then, Gustafsson's been finished 5, 6, 7 times potentially. So he gets submitted in the 4th round by Jon Jones. Okay, Jones looked all right. He's back. Let's see him back in there against a rising, hungry, dangerous contender. Anthony Smith. Now, at this point, you know, you could argue Anthony Smith is decent. He's top 10. Doesn't deserve a title shot. Never has. He's a veteran. And Jones illegally knees him. One of the worst and most damaging illegal knees I've ever seen. Right against the cage. Lionheart continues, but he was definitely compromised after that. And he didn't make it look easy. Now, Jon Jones, I wouldn't say is a high-level kickboxer. I call what Jon Jones does trick boxing. You know, he's got the attributes and the movement, and he throws things out there. He does fancy stuff, which dulls his opponent into a false sense of danger. And that's what he did massively well against Anthony Smith. You know, he's a phenomenal fighter. However, Jones is being active. He then goes on to fight a man named Thiago Santos. You know, again, another guy who didn't deserve a title shot, but he's a stocky, dangerous Brazilian. He had one knee in that fight. You know, he tore his whole meniscus, his whole ACL. He was out for months. He had 4 reconstruction surgeries on his left knee after the fight. And it was a split decision, which Thiago Santos, in my opinion, didn't quite get. However, we're starting to, and that was a smaller guy. That was a smaller, shorter guy than Jones. But you're seeing these bigger, stockier guys who have a bit of technique putting it on him. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Jon Jones is done. Jon Jones is not looking good on the feet at all. You know, he's trying to get people down. He's not. And he's actually being gifted a lot of these decisions. Moving on a few months, he fights Dominic Reyes. Now, this has been the most active we've seen Jon Jones in a long time. 2018 to 2019 was a great year for him. Until the Dominic Reyes fight, where, you know, this was also before Ngannou had the heavyweight belt. You know, we kind of all thought he was going to move up after this fight. Let me tell you what happened here. Jon Jones loses the first 3 rounds to Dominic Reyes so embarrassingly, really badly, and then wins the final 2 because Reyes slowed down. Bear in mind, it wasn't close. He clearly won the first 3. And then Dominic Reyes gets robbed of the biggest win in MMA history up until that point it would have been. And that's when everyone's calling Jon Jones finished. Lost. He won a split decision. So that's a few split decisions in a row now. Some really bad performances. But he's winning. You know, he's winning. The star always wins. He then vacates the lightweight title, the light heavyweight title. He takes 2.5, 3 years out to put on muscle and gain weight, and he comes back looking fat. You know, we all know what happens. He didn't want to fight Francis Ngannou. Ngannou knocked out Stipe, called out Jon Jones, and Jones took 2 years to put on weight and wasn't ready. Bear in mind, Francis called him out. Jones said he was nowhere near ready. Then 2 weeks later, after Cyril Gane leaves the UFC, Jones and Cyril Gane are fighting on 6 weeks' notice. That's suspicious in itself, right? So you weren't ready, but 2 weeks later, you're more than ready to sign a 6-week notice fight against Cyril Gane, a pure striker with no grappling game. But Ngannou's now gone, and you couldn't fight Ngannou in 6 weeks. Instantly screams insecure, fragile. You know, he goes out there, submits Cyril Gane, whatever. It was a good performance, but Cyril Gane just looked absolutely terrible. He looked shit scared in that fight. And who wouldn't be? It's Jon Jones you're fighting. But the myth around this man is a lot better than the fighter. And then, you know, wins the belt, doesn't fucking defend it for 1 year and 11 months. So he won it in December. He then had a fight booked in the November of the next year, which is 11 months later. He then pulled out of that fight against an old 40-year-old Stipe Miocic, and then did it 1 year later. So he was almost out for 2 years, didn't get the belt stripped from him. In the meantime, Aspinall won the championship. You know, there was also, in that 2 years period of time, there was him assaulting a USADA lady, allegedly. There's a video of it. He's drunk in the morning. He gets injured as well. And in that time, he was drunk driving. He had cocaine and weed in a car and a firearm. The police do him for that. That same night, previous to that, he battered his wife and left her in a pool of her own blood in a hotel room, to where the kids walked in on him beating her. And they had to phone the reception saying, "Can you get the police?" Great guy. Then he came back, fought Stipe. No one even mentions this. No one in the media asks him about these things outside the cage, because I don't know why. MMA media is ridiculous. Really shit. That's why I'm here making this video. Yeah, all the Jones fans fucking hate me because I just list everything. I'm just listing all the shit. I'm just breaking it down by timeline. Yeah, there you go. Now we're up to date, and he's ducking Aspinall the same way he ducked Ngannou. He didn't want to fight Ngannou. Oh, and not to mention, they moved the whole Alexander Gustafsson 2-fight event to a different venue because Jones once again failed a drug test, and Vegas said, well, he's not fighting, he's on steroids. So this is what they do for him. His whole career is fraudulent. I know I'm going to end this and think of 10 more things I could have said, but his last fight, yeah, he looked shit on the feet. He got a spinning back kick to the body. Well done. Fucking whatever. Good for him. If he's your GOAT, then it is what it is. He's shit. He's a terrible human. Imagine me beating my wife and my kids walking in and not knowing what to do, so they have to phone the hotel reception and just let them know, oh, by the way, my daddy's beating the fuck out of my mummy and leaving her in a pool of her own blood. Fuck him. Whatever. He's shit. He's the fake GOAT. George St. Pierre, Demetrius Johnson, extremely good role models. I don't know why you African American steroid people are obsessed with the man. He's a prick. And his career's fraudulent. You can call him the GOAT on accolades and resume, but he's fought shit people to get where he is, and he's almost lost to all these shit people. And he's like, oh, Jones was just bored. Fuck off. Yeah, he was bored, so he just lost. Like, mate, see you later.